This is a case that just makes you go, what the hell is wrong with humanity? What is wrong with people? Just, hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Theresa Lund. Viewer discretion is advised. Real quick before we get started, of course, hello, my name is Mike. I tell true crime stories here on YouTube. I tell 3 of them a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So please subscribe, give this video a like. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok. I have about 3 million or so followers over there, so feel free to follow me there. I have it down in the description of this video below in the link tree, or it's just making a true crimerer. And then I also have a Discord server. Feel free to join it. It's also in the link tree in the description below. Be over the age of 18 or else you're going to get kicked out of there. Sorry, not sorry. What are you going to do about it? Nothing? Okay. Also, we sell merch like this shirt, Making a True Crimerer, and many other type of things. So that's also linked below. We ship all over the entire world. The big triangular world we live in. We ship it everywhere, yeah. And then lastly, if there's a case you want me to cover, just email me at mikey@truecrimerertwo.com. That's also listed below. Just email me the name of the person, where it happened, when it happened, and I'll add it to my list. I can't tell you when I'll cover it because I pick my cases out at random. I will get to it eventually. I just can't tell you when. But let's get into today's story. Stop being happy, Mike. Okay. Theresa Lund was born on January 9th, 1962, and she was born in Iowa City, Iowa. I don't know a whole lot about Theresa, unfortunately, but at the time of this case, she is now living in Keokuk, Iowa. And from what I understand, it's like a smaller kind of community there in Iowa. The 34-year-old woman had 2 children with a previous marriage, and then she had a 3rd child with her current husband. Her most recent child was just 6 weeks old, and his name is Paul. Theresa was described as a mom who was a mom first and foremost. She loved her children. She was extremely reliable to her children, very dependable. And one of her daughters, when later on when they grew up, said that Theresa was a very hands-on mom. She was always playing with the kids. She was always helping them. Theresa loved music, and she would always make sure she shared music with the kids. Her husband at the time, Terry Bell, she married him back in 1990, from what I understand. But Terry, he got a new job that brought him out of state, and so he was essentially living in Indiana. And the plan was that Theresa and the 3 kids were on the verge of basically moving from Keokuk to Indiana. But unfortunately, that would not get to happen. Because on August 29th, 1996, a close friend to Theresa would call 911 in a concern because Theresa failed to pick up her 2 older children from school the day before. I believe a family friend or a grandparent or something ended up picking up the kids, but nobody knew where Theresa was. And so they waited about 24 hours just to make sure that maybe she just kind of went away for a bit to clear her head or something. But when she still wasn't there the following morning, that's when they alerted police. Theresa had last been seen the day prior, August 28th, 1996, dropping the 2 kids off at school. It was actually the first day of kindergarten for one of her daughters. And Theresa, turned to them, said she loved them, and said, I'll see you later when I pick you up. But she never showed up. When Theresa's mom found out that she was missing, she went looking for her right away. And she actually found Theresa's car. Theresa's car was parked near a supermarket that Theresa would go to frequently. Theresa wasn't the only one missing. So was baby Paul. And of course, that just raised the alarm even more. But when Theresa's mom found the car, what was the most alarming part about it was, well, one, not only is Theresa missing, but the car seat that was in the car was also missing. So did someone hurt Theresa and kidnap the baby? Because, if they're planning on harming the baby, why take the car seat? Was the plan to kidnap baby Paul because they brought the car seat with them, whoever took them? Also in the car were Theresa's belongings, her purse and her wallet and whatnot. There wasn't any sign of like a struggle in the car. There wasn't any blood or like pulled out hair. There wasn't any broken windows. Nothing in the car was broken. It just looked like Theresa got out of the car, left her stuff, and took the baby with the car seat out and then just poofed into thin air. Once police were notified of this, they of course inspected the car. Again, they didn't find anything of evidentiary value. They then checked into Theresa's banking history, like her bank account. Nothing in her bank account had been touched or used since before she disappeared. They went and looked at the house that Theresa lived in. Nothing out of the ordinary. There was no sign of a break-in, no forced entry, nothing was stolen, no signs of foul play, no blood, no anything, no evidence whatsoever that anything happened in that house that would have led people to believe something horrible happened. So police first want to look at Terry, Theresa's husband, and because obviously the husband's the first person you think of when you think of these things, that there's no way he could have done anything to her because he was absolutely confirmed to be in Indiana the entire time frame that Theresa would have vanished. He was way away. There's no way he could have done it, so he was ruled out. And so police, they're, and family and volunteers, they're out there searching for Theresa and this baby, and they're coming up with nothing. There's no signs of them whatsoever. And then on September 14th, 1996, a couple of weeks after the disappearance, police get a very strange phone call. An anonymous woman calls the authorities to tell them to look into Kimmi and Robert Hardy. They are a married couple who live in Keokuk, Iowa. This anonymous person called and said, "I'm concerned because Kimmi brought home a newborn baby the same day that Theresa disappeared. But there's something wrong with this supposedly newborn baby." The caller goes on to explain that Kimmi Hardy claimed that the baby was born that day. But the baby, for being a newborn at least, was huge. It was a big kid. This friend, who ended up calling police, said Kimmi asked, the friend to change the baby's diaper, and they noticed that there was no umbilical cord, still there because, part of it is still attached and it kind of just, it naturally falls off. It should have been there. And the other thing the friend noticed was that the baby was circumcised. If you just had this baby today, first of all, how are you bringing him home the day you have the baby? That's one red flag. 2, where's the umbilical cord part? And 3, how is the baby already not only circumcised the day they were born, and also completely healed? Nothing makes sense here. So that's why the friend went to police. So on September 17th, police go to the Hardy house. Kimmi Hardy, who's 36 years old, opens the door. She lets police come in. The police see the baby. To the police, they're like, "You just had this baby a couple of weeks ago?" And she's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay. This baby looks a couple of months old, but all right." But they couldn't just say all right, you're under arrest, because they didn't know idea. They couldn't say for sure that this was the missing baby. Police would find out that in the past few months, Kimmi was claiming she was pregnant. She was out buying baby clothes. She had new, baby stuff at home, as if she was preparing for a new baby. Her husband, Robert, said, she told me she was pregnant and she had a baby. Kimmi had 3 children before this with another individual. When she claimed she, with her third husband, had a stillborn baby. And then police would find out, I think at some point in the late 80s, Kimmi ended up having her tubes tied, which meant she couldn't have gotten pregnant. But when Kimmi married Robert, sometime shortly afterwards in 1996, that's when she tells Robert she's pregnant. And, people are like, "Well, that's interesting. I don't know how you would have been able to do that." It's a miracle. Now, Kimmi had reportedly asked this friend who ended up calling the police about all this if they would sign the witness form for the birth certificate. But the friend, looking at all these red flags, was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And first and foremost, the friend didn't witness the birth. Nobody did, not even the husband. So police were then finally able to get a warrant to search the Hardy house, but more importantly, get, evidence off of the baby, like footprints, handprints, that kind of thing, DNA, whatever they can get. But when police arrived, Kimmi and Robert, or Bob as he was called, they were gone. Just gone. They left. But then they had found out from some neighbors of Kimmi and Robert's, because I guess the neighbors were watching one of their other kids for whatever reason, and through a series of events, they found out where Kimmi and Robert had gone to. So police go to that location. They then present the warrant to Robert. Robert takes it, and he basically just crumbles it, rips it, throws it, tells him to F off. And then he was arrested because you can't do that. This isn't the movies. You can't just be like, sorry, capo. This makes it not valid anymore. No, it's valid, bud. So that's when Kimmi had no choice but to go to the hospital with the baby so that the baby could be get their footprints impressions taken. And then after that, they would go to the police station to have a formal interview. Once Kimmi gets to the police station and she sits down in the interrogation room, she folds completely. She told the police officer, the detective, she looked him right in the face and said, I'm going to tell you straight up, the baby's not mine. Kimmi says she bought the baby from a man named Anthony Matrona, and that she spent about somewhere between $1,500 to $3,000 and bought the baby for that price, plus also a couple of guns. The baby wasn't there during the purchase, which is just an insane thing to say out loud. But then she says that Matrona had sent two Hispanic men to her home with the baby and said, here you go, here's your baby you just bought for $3,000. That's when she claims that these two men also put a body in her crawl space. Whose body was it? Theresa Lund. And she said she had no idea that the body was in there until a little bit later. Then she tells police, well, then me and Robert, when we found her body, were like, well, we can't be implicated in this. We didn't do this. And so they said they would move her body to take any heat off of them. So Theresa Lund's body was then found in a field where Kimmi and Robert had supposedly moved it to. She had 2 gunshot wounds to her head, and police determined that she was shot with a .380 caliber handgun. Well, police would later find testimony that Kimmi had purchased a handgun a few weeks to a month or so prior to this murder. As a matter of fact, police tracked down one gun seller at an actual retail location who told police that Kimmi had gone there with the intent of buying a gun, and she asked the salesperson, how close do I have to be to kill someone with this gun? And will it completely blow their head off, or will it just make a little bit of a mess? The salesperson was immediately concerned by this and refused to sell her a gun, but apparently didn't go to police about this. Then police found out that Kimmi had purchased a gun at a different location and didn't ask any concerning questions like that. Police are having a hard time believing this story about how she bought this baby and all that, and so they bring in Robert now and they put him under questioning, and he says, I'm gonna make a deal with you guys. He was the one that actually would lead police to Theresa's body, not Kimmi. Bob told police, I truly believe that Kimmi was pregnant. And so he was at work when he got a phone call on August 28th that Kimmi had the baby in the house. And so he rushed home and he got there and he immediately noticed like a foul smell. And when he points out this smell, Kimmi tells him, oh, that's because there's a body downstairs. He's like, shut up. And, thinking she's joking, he goes downstairs and sure as shit, there is a body. And it's Theresa Lund's body. So at that point, he helps dispose of the body in order to protect his wife and also himself at this point. Police were digging into Kimmi's past and they found one of her previous husbands, Wendell Smith. And he told them an interesting story. Kimmi had faked a pregnancy before. So Kimmi claims she got pregnant with Wendell Smith, but this would have been after she had her tubes tied, and so it would have been another miracle baby. Well, Kimmi says that on the day that this supposed baby was born, the baby was born stillborn and died, obviously. And so she says she then took him to a cemetery where she buried him, gave him a little gravestone. The name on it was Zachary. And that was it. And so police were able to get a warrant to go to that grave because it was still at that cemetery and dig up those remains. When they did, there was just bubble wrap and a teddy bear inside the grave. There was no human remains. There were no skeletal remains of a baby or anyone. So Kimmi had lied. So then, how does Kimmi and Theresa know each other? Well, that seems to be somewhat unclear. What they believe is that Kimmi must have befriended Theresa at some point, probably pretty close to when this all happened. She probably saw this 6-week-old baby, or however old the baby was when, Kimmi had met them. Because I think they believe that Kimmi and Theresa met after baby Paul was already born. And so at one point, really quickly after this friendship became real, Kimmi invited Theresa to her home. Theresa was basically lured there under the guise of Kimmi offering her some hand-me-down baby clothes, because she did actually have kids. Kimmi had actual children. And so what they think happened is that Theresa went down there, and as she was looking through the clothing, Kimmi took this gun and shot her twice in the back of the head, and then shoved her body into a crawl space in the basement. I think they established that why Kimmi did this was because she promised Robert that they could have a baby somehow, that they would get a baby, and she wanted to make Bob happy and wanted to make him a father to his own child. And so this may have led to her doing this. So her plan was to just kill and dispose of Theresa and kidnap this baby. But she didn't think this through, because she really tried to pass off a 6 or 7 week old baby as a brand new baby that had just been born the day she showed it to people. Nobody witnessed the birth. The hospitals, they would find out, had no records of Kimmi ever giving birth to this baby. The hospitals had no record of her even being a patient. There was no medical history to suggest that she was even pregnant whatsoever. I'm kind of confused on whether or not she was using maybe a pregnancy, belly, one of those fake ones, to fool people or what. But obviously, Robert claimed he thought she was pregnant. So she must have been doing something to make it look like she was. And then she just so happened to meet Theresa Lund, who just had a baby, and well, it all was lined up for her. But again, I don't know what the hell she was thinking and how she was going to pass this off, because that's insane. This baby is about almost 2 months old, right? A month and a half old. It's bigger than a newborn, for God's sakes. And anyway, the foot impressions, by the way, and the DNA and all that, it all came back to being that this was baby Paul. So they confirmed without a shadow of a doubt that she kidnapped baby Paul, that she killed Theresa Lund specifically to get this baby. This bullshit story about how she paid $3,000 wasn't true. Although I will say this, that Kimmi still sticks by that. She still says she paid for a baby, and it was them who killed Theresa and hid her body in her house. Okay. But Robert says otherwise. So Robert, or Bob Hardy, would end up pleading guilty to interference of official acts in possession of a firearm for a felon, and basically accessory charges kind of after the fact. And he was sentenced to about 3 years in prison, which he served, and he was released in 2002. Kimmi Hardy would then go to trial, and she was charged with first-degree homicide, kidnapping, child stealing. I guess there's 2 different things. And the jury was quick to come back with, yeah, bitch, you're guilty. You obviously did this. And I mean, the evidence was overwhelming as to why and how she did this. And this is, like I said at the very beginning, this is just one of those stories that it's just, human race is just such garbage at times. A lot of the times. She murdered a new mother in order to steal the baby and pawn it off as her own. And she really thought she was going to convince people that this was a newborn baby and not a 6-week-old baby. She didn't think any of it through. The umbilical cord, the circumcision story, none of it. How dumb can a person be? So all of that was she killed a woman and kidnapped a baby who thankfully, hopefully, won't have any memory of this ever happening. But, potentially you could have traumatized this child if you got away with it. God forbid if you got away with it. This child would have grown up thinking God knows what, thinking that Kimmi and Bob were his parents and never knowing. People are just the worst. But thankfully, Kimmi was, she got life without parole, and she'll never be released. She'll never be able to do this kind of atrocious thing to another person again. And she is exactly where she deserves to be. She has appealed a few times, I guess, but she's lost all of her appeals, and she is still rotting in a prison cell. And I say, good. This didn't need to happen to Theresa, and it turns out, like I said, it was all for nothing, because Kimmi was caught quick, and it was all over. She killed this woman and stole a baby for nothing. And so now 3 total children, her first 2 kids plus baby Paul, they all have to grow up without a mom. Their mom doesn't get to see them grow up and, go to high school, go to prom, doesn't get to be a grandma to their kids, doesn't get to do any of it because of this disgusting, deplorable, selfish, horrific woman took all of that away in an instant. But thankfully, Theresa Lund and her kids got the justice they all rightfully deserved. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rudy Doody Dingleberry Dongs. Hope you found it interesting. That was weird. Like I always say, please subscribe, give this video a like, follow me over on TikTok. It's all linked below. Discord server, we sell merch, recommend a case. I gotta stop doing accents because they're very offensive and I don't do them well. I don't know what is this accent. In New York, is in New Jersey. It's not Boston. Boston. In the car, you motherfucker. That was so bad. That was very, I apologize to all the Bostonians. Bostonites. Boston Market is a place that sells food for fat people like me. I like to eat food at Boston Market. That's not their theme song, Mike. I don't think they even have a theme song. Do they have a jingle? I don't know. Wow, I have really gone off the rails. I started with one thing, and now I am somewhere completely different. I never know what I'm doing, I think, like, ever. So, what? I don't know. I don't know how to say goodbye, as usual. No, that wasn't it. Better luck next time, Michelangelo. Better luck next time.